I went over in August of '68, and I was with the 116th Assault Helicopter Company, and that was stationed at Cu which was west of Saigon. And our sister company was Tay Ninh, so we flew missions back and forth along that area between Tay Ninh, and we supported a lot of ground troops like the 25th, 101st, 82nd. We were just an assault helicopter, and we had Slecks, which were they had the door gunners and some armament, but they were troop carriers. I actually got commissioned at 18 out of OCS, and I got in there in August. My birthday was in September, so I probably still was 18. I was a combat engineer, and I went to flight school, so I was sent over as a lieutenant after I went through aviation school. I had a short station up at Watertown, New York as a range maintenance waiting for a shipment overseas, and actually ended up with one of my classmates in Cu at the same company. But you're never really ready until you get there. I mean, there's no way to be prepared for what you actually feel or see when you get there. We were doing hauling troops into LZs. It'd be 6-8 to a ship, or if they were Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, or whatever, there'd be more, maybe 9 or 10. And we were flying hotel model Hueys. And of course we had our flak jackets, and our seats were bulletproof, and we had our helmets, but it didn't take very many days to find out that we were really in the hot country, hot combat area. We were getting shot at as we come into the LZs, and I remember my first real awareness of what was going on was getting up and looking, and I could see bullets hitting the water, and I thought it was our guys shooting out. And I think my pilot said, "Get your head down, Hotz. Those are incoming." And they were right out in front of us. And it was like real awareness, like this thing is real. We were flying a lot of hours per day. Seemed like from morning to night, and even night missions. Saw a helicopter right next to me. A guy had went to aviation school, got hit right in the head, and that was his end right there. And every day, or just about every day you come back, there'd be somebody that it was a casualty or sent back home. And night that I got hit, a rocket came through my hooch, my barracks, and it had a galvanized roof, and it just splattered that. And so between the fragments and the shrapnel's what splattered me. And my roommate was gone. Luckily, it blew his bed completely apart. I was laying down sleeping, and it just knocked me basically out of bed, and I was bleeding bad in the throat. So I sort of remember sticking my finger into trying to get air. My windpipe was cut, and I had a piece of shrapnel about the size of a pack of cigarettes stuck right there. And I sort of limped or walked down the boardwalk to another hooch, and there was another major that saw me, grabbed me, wrapped me in a sheet. And luckily we had a medical team right there on base camp. So I don't know how long, it's no way of knowing the amount of time that passed. If I'd been out in the field, I probably wouldn't have made it, but luckily we had quick medical attention. And I remember him starting to work on me, and seemed like I was kind of up above looking down at him, but over that many years, I guess you don't know. But I ended up with a lot of shrapnel. I had like 40 pieces. It just splattered me. And they were able to stabilize me, and several days later, I think they picked me on a stretcher, and I went to Saigon and to Tokyo, spent some time there, and then went to Travis Air Force Base, and then ended up in Fitzsimmons for several years until I did a lot of reconstructive surgery. When I got hit, I couldn't eat. I had to take everything through tubes in my nose. So on my first leave, I remember going to a basketball game in my hometown, and I weighed 128 pounds from 215 pounds. And I had a trach, so I couldn't talk. I was just skin and bones, but I was alive. There's a period when bitterness sets in. I mean, I guess that you're the one that got hit or whatever, but eventually, you figure that there's a blessing in that too, because you could have been dead or a lot worse off than. I saw some real bad cases in the hospital, and I consider myself real lucky. when you're at that age going over there, like say you're not prepared what's going on, it's just kind of, you're sent there to do your job. And really, I don't think anybody's aware of what was going on until maybe even after it was over with. I know there were times that I felt, and I'm sure other people did too, that we were kind of, well, I used to play basketball like we were fighting half court. You know, we'd hit supply lines, have 3 or 4 days of hitting active areas, and maybe they would call us back for a day. It was almost like giving them a chance to regroup. Or some of us felt that way. Maybe it wasn't. You know, they had their own reasons for doing things, but and then some of the people been there a long time said, well, we could win this thing in a week. We'll just blow it up and blacktop it. And no doubt we had the armament and stuff to do that, but that wasn't the way the war was being fought. And it was a different kind of war. I don't know what the actual number came out after it was all over, but I remember hearing my dad talk about hundreds of thousands of troops being killed in World War II, and I think basically Vietnam we probably lost, what, 50, 60, 70,000. So it's a different kind of war. The ones that were gung-ho had probably had some time there, or maybe it was a little bit of a facade, but a lot of them were scared to death. I mean, they were brand new, young in the country, and, you know, especially on their first few missions. I mean, you can imagine coming in, the flight probably scared them, and then to drop into an LZ and being fired up on probably being my age at 18 or 19 years old. I mean, it was petrifying. They had, you know, they were dropped into a hot LZ. Anybody would react the same way. You saw people next to you being injured or killed, and I think everybody, even nowadays, human nature is, it happens to the next guy. It won't happen to me. It was real eye-opening to me when I woke up in the hospital a month later, realized that I was alive, but that I'd been hit, because you always think it's going to happen to the next guy. You know, I'm lucky I even woke up probably. You know, that could have been the end of the whole show. So you realize real quick that you're not invincible. Your number's up. You know, and I thank God it wasn't, because I've sure enjoyed life since that, but it was real close either way. The real war was going on. There were people being killed, there would be people being shot, and there was, like I say, a lot more action on the ground that we never even got to see. You're up a couple 100 feet and you're firing into the brush, you know somebody's going to get wounded or killed, but when you're on the ground, you're hand to hand or 15 or 20 feet, you know it's really happening. I don't know if anybody can imagine 18 or 19 and have a rifle in your hand and jumping out into a rice paddy where you know, well, you can hear shooting. Whether it's outgoing or incoming, you don't know. I mean, it's the real thing right then. I mean, I can't fathom any individual. I guess everybody's going to react differently. Or maybe everybody reacts the same, I don't know. It's got to be petrifying. There was no homecoming. First of all, I was in a hospital. I've heard other people talk about that there was nobody to meet him off the plane and no parades, but that was the kind of war it was. I remember a guy in Gunnison sobbing over a beer that nobody came to the airport, and he was actually in supply or something. I said, just get it out of your system, because just kind of war it was. The short amount of time that I was there, I was intrigued by it, thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing for my country. Uncle Sam had sent me over there, and I wanted to do it the best I could. And I wouldn't say I was eager to do it, but I got up knowing I was going to do it, and it wasn't dragging my feet. You're anxious probably in a good sense and a bad sense. You're anxious because of what might happen, but you're also anxious to get in to start doing it.
You know, what does freedom mean to you? I mean, having fought in Vietnam, been injured, what does freedom mean to you, Mike?
Well, I don't know if we accomplished everything we were supposed to in that particular war, but other wars, that's what that's what we're fighting for, and I think a lot of people may take that for granted. Unless you're there at first-hand experience, there's a lot of sacrifices that are put out for that word of freedom, which is a cause, and over eons and all the history, you know, it's been there. We are a free country, and then I do think a lot of people do take it for granted. I don't think the veterans do. I mean, I don't care what aspect they're at. Maybe they don't even see the action, but they're there putting in their tally in their day, and they're making their sacrifices. They're away from their families. They're out of society for that period of time. I think a lot of times they're underappreciated. When I was more conscious in Fitzsimmons is where I really saw the tally of the war. I mean, it was young husband and wife, and he would be amputated or amputated and tore up inside or die on the bed next to me, and that was where you really saw the cost of war, the destruction of what it did to the human lives. And, that was only just a tinge of it, because there was so much more that was just in one hospital. That was Fitzsimmons in Denver, which was a big hospital. And I became friends with some of those guys, but even after they got out, if I look back, half of those guys are dead right now. They just never did readjust. They had a lot of divorces. They had a lot of financial problems, a lot of drinking, drugs, suicides. I mean, a lot of them just didn't come out of it right. A lot of psychological problems. I know a lot of officers that were wounded that just, over the last 20 years, that I've found out that just didn't make it. They died of alcoholism or suicides or bad medical problems. I think World War II was, maybe the whole country dived into it more, so there wasn't the conflict of whether it was right or wrong. So maybe they didn't have that adjustment. I mean, there probably were more flag-waving ceremony parades for the World War II veterans, but it was an unpopular war. It probably still is. It's the public, it was probably a mixed reaction. You didn't know if somebody's going to shake your hand or punch at you because you were there. Yeah, it was a different kind of war. I'm glad I was young, so I didn't probably know any better. At 18 or 19, you really don't know that much. You just kind of do what you're told to do.
Mike, tell me, what does the American flag mean to you today?
Oh, it's a symbol of what we stand for. I mean, there's been a lot of sacrifices for it. I'm glad I'm here and not in a different country. There's a lot of other areas over there that they don't have even a chance of what we appreciate here. I mean, to live in this society and to walk out and get in your car and drive and go pretty much where you want. We have more freedom here than any place I've ever been. I've been to New Zealand and Australia and Canada and Mexico, and there are other free parts of the world, but we really have the best of everything here. And if that's what it took to get that, then everything was worth it. Maybe not to the families that suffered more, but I consider myself very lucky to be here, so it's behind me.
Are you proud that you're a Vietnam veteran, you're service to our country?
I don't gloat on it. I usually don't talk about it, but I'm not ashamed of it. Yeah, I'm proud, but very few people know about it. It doesn't come up in normal conversations.
Why?
I don't think our society just really wants to deal with it, or it's not, like I said, it wasn't a popular war, but the people that do knew it once in a while, they'll, even like this, I didn't have a reluctance to do it, but I didn't seek it out to have it done because it's something that you do want to put behind you, but at the same time, no, I'm proud of it. I'm glad that it's hard to say I'm glad I was there because maybe things would have been a lot different, but I was there, so I'm glad that I am here now in the shape that I'm in, and I'm not ashamed that I did it. I have remorse about maybe some of the things that I had to do there. Don't even know to some extent what I did do. Being in the air and firing rounds, I mean, I'm sure there was damages done. I saw hooches and villages destroyed, so I'm sure there were, there was a cost to that. And I don't like to think or remember that part of it, but that's part of the war. That's what we were called to do. It's one thing about the Army, I mean, you do what you're told to do. Right, wrong, and indifferent, you do it. If it's wrong, you deal with it later. And I remember the old saying, it's better to make a wrong decision quick than it was a right one too late. So that's especially true in combat.
Has anybody ever thanked you for your service in Vietnam?
Well, no, probably not exactly like that. Not just to come up and shake your hand. There are some appreciation functions and stuff, and the Fruta has a new center out here that's got the chopper. I'm glad I'm in the town that has it. That's nice to see that Huey come in. And there's been some appreciation done on that, so.